Hi, today I want to show you how to put together the Triangles K-Cup holder from Simply Crafty SVGs, which holds 3 K-Cups. So the first thing I wanted to show you is how to score all the pieces, or fold the pieces on the scores. And I did score this with a Cricut Maker scoring wheel. It scores fairly well on the AC cardstock. They do have a double score wheel that does well on thicker papers as well, but I used the single wheel. It's something I had gotten recently. It does do a clean score, so you don't see those dash marks. But I also use other machines that do like a kiss cut, like Silhouette. You can do a kiss cut if you want to use a solid line instead of dash, or Sizzix Eclipse 2 is another machine I use. So that's actually my preferred machine. But I think the Maker score wheel does a pretty decent job of scoring it. It doesn't cut at all. You just have to make sure you're careful when you bend over some of the larger folds, especially near an opening like this hole. So you just kind of gently start bending in a section, and then it usually follows through. And you can go over it with like a bone folder to make it more crisp if you need to. Sometimes I need to, but most times I can usually get the crispness with just my finger running over the edge. I don't know, I use tools when I have to, but I don't always use them. So for these particular tabs right here, you want to fold them down and then back up, because they will glue upwards. So you want to get that nice and set up for yourself. We just want to get that set up before we add the panels. And you can see that's how it's going to go, just to give you an indication of why we have the tabs that way. Kind of an odd box. I wanted something unique. So that's how it's going to fold over. And then these, it'll line up like that. So first we want to add the panels, because it's easier when it's flat to add panels. So we're going to add these side panels, and I'm using a Beacon Fabric Tack glue. The reason I'm using this, because I'm using a handmade paper that my Scotch Quick Dry would be seen through. So it's kind of a see-through. I kind of tested it with a couple glues before I chose this. I do like Fabric sometimes to use for boxes anyways, but it dries clear and you can't see it through it. So be careful when you're using anything this is a mulberry paper, so like I said, it's handmade, so it has a lot of fiber in it. It's the first time I'm using I used the rotary tool in the Maker to cut it. It's like fabric because it's so fibrous. But I do like this this glue. The only thing is it's a little stringy at times, but you can thin it out with acetone. I understand. I haven't done it yet. I do have acetone. I just haven't thinned it out. This was recommended to me from somebody at a craft show, and I actually like the glue. Okay, so now there's these weird little panels. So they're shaped differently, so you have to make sure they're in the correct spot before you glue them on, because it's a little bit larger in the back, so it kind of angles to, in the front it's smaller, and then it angles back to a larger size. Like I said, it's your choice if you wanted to put these on last, but I think it's easier when you can apply pressure against the table. And this is not the simplest box to put together, so you need to be patient with yourself and be slow. It's not difficult either. There's just some kind of it's just a little bit different than a square box. That's all for this one. So with this big panel here, I only have one panel in the file, You could potentially do a duplicate and put it on the back as well, but that's up to you. You could always duplicate this to put it to have another panel on the back, or a different color panel. It's up to you. See, it's pretty flimsy because it's like a decorative mulberry paper I'm using. I couldn't cut it with the die cutter really simply before. I just have to, so flimsy it just kind of falls down and touches it. But I tried, it was my first try using the rotary cutter on the Cricut Maker to see how well it cut it, because I have a huge, not a huge amount, but I have a fairly large stack of handmade papers. It'd be nice to cut them occasionally and not into squares. It worked quite well. I love this pattern though. So now we're going to put the box together, so we want to align the pieces properly. So you see that there'll be a side on the left. You want that front tab in the front, and then it'll attach like that. So you can see we're going to flip it upside down. We're going to add glue to this one tab here, and we're going to align it so that the bottom right piece aligns with that tab fold right in the bottom here. You want to make sure you align that edge with the tab fold as well to make this side. It'll make sense in a minute. I have a little glue on my fingers. You might hear my dog barking in the background. Sorry about that. But you can see how I'm deciding how to put it on, so just make sure you match it up just the way it looks here. And again, you see it's aligned to that in the corner there where that the large piece fold, it matches the edge, the left edge matches with the large piece fold on the bottom there, and then the edge, side edge, matches up to the tab fold. So this is what it would look like before we go on to the next step. So now we're going to put together that top piece. We're going to just assemble the top so it gets that little 3D effect, so it's raised. So we want to add glue to that little tab, and then align the other edge, the adjacent edge, to the tab fold, and make sure you hold it good and long for it's secure, so it's secure before you go on to the next one, and you'll see how that edge will match up. So you don't want to put a lot of glue because you don't want it leaking. I think I had a little leakage on this. But you want to add glue to this tab, and then you just want to line it up to the inside of that tab fold. And that's why we wanted to get a nice crisp edge on that tab. And so that's what the inside looks like. And you can see it's starting to form. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Just add glue to that tab, and then that adjacent edge, you're just going to line it up and apply pressure, and just make sure you just hold it long enough so it's secure. I mean, you should, if you know your glue, you'll know how long you have to hold it. Sometimes I don't hold it long enough and I have to re-glue it with a little fine tip applicator. This is kind of hard to get in here, but you kind of reach down and push that edge in well enough to fit into the inside tab fold. I have a wet paper cloth around, if you, like me. Sorry at some of my shot, but that's just a wet paper towel to clean my fingers of glue and wipe excessive glue. And then we'll glue this front tab. And I'm just folding those in on the bottom there just to get them ready. So fold in that tab, then apply glue. Now, I didn't hold this long enough in this video, but it works okay. You need to really hold it for a while to do your best. It may pull just a little bit at the bottom after you glue it, but that's just because of the pressure. It should be okay as long as the whole thing doesn't pull apart. So I wouldn't worry about it. Just hold it long enough but there's a little bit of pressure on it, and that's why it tries to pull apart. But it does come together okay. So you can see those front tabs in the front there. That'll be used to put that front panel on. Just so you know, when you see how it'll kind of straighten out. But first we're going to glue these bottom tabs to the inside of the side pieces. So you can see it's coming together now. So we add glue only to one side at a time. And don't add glue where it doesn't need to. I just move the glue bottle. And you're kind of going to fold it over gently. And then the reason we're doing it like this, because you can reach in really easily. So I'm applying pressure with a wooden chopstick. Those takeout chopsticks. And then just make sure that's good and lined up. And then secure before you do the second one. So the same steps. Just getting it into an angle that I can get in to add the glue. A fine tip applicator would be a good choice for this. I just didn't have that out. I had too much glue. So I had to clean that off a little bit. And go ahead and line up that edge, that side bottom edge to the tab fold. And then just gently apply pressure along that tab. And then you can flip it over and apply additional pressure. And I'm just reaching my hand in there to kind of get pressure from the behind. And then I prefer using the table. And then if you need to, you can use a chopstick. And you can see the tab, and I had a little excess glue inside. At least you can't see it once it's together, but I try to be careful with that. So it's coming together. We just need to put that front piece on. I had glue on my fingers. So the way that this comes on, we're going to add it to one tab at a time. So you want to make sure that after we add the glue, verbally, I want to just let you know, you want to make sure that you align it on the left, making sure that upper left corner of the panel matches up to the upper left corner of that tab. And just try to line it up best you can. Else you'll have too much a gap on the right hand side. You don't want a gap on the right hand side. So you want to just apply pressure like that, matching it up to that tab fold and making sure it lines up. And then you can flip it over, add glue to that second tab. You want to be careful not pulling too much because we don't want that little triangular part on top to pull apart. I'm barely holding it when I'm doing that. And then I just gently line up that top edge to the tab fold there. And it might take a second. I wanted to make sure that it would line up on the right hand side. But I was a little bit off of my alignment on the left. So it was a little bit off, but not enough to cause any major issues. Sometimes I get a little nervous when I'm doing the videos, so. And you can see you're still reaching. It's easy to reach in to apply pressure from behind as well. So you can see what it looks like. I love when that light hits those metallic highlights on the paper. So now we have these little we're going to do the side tabs, glue those. And we did the smaller ones so we could reach in. Smaller tabs are easier to deal with in small places, in my opinion. So anyways, we're going to add enough glue on both sides. You don't want too much glue so it goes through, but you want enough glue so you can do this all at once. Because we're going to flip it in, make sure they're pushed in. And then we're going to kind of gently push it in, and we're going to put our hands through that little one of the holes there. And then apply pressure along that tab edge. You're trying to making sure that it's aligned properly. And the same thing on the other side. This is why we want to have enough glue. So you're just reaching in and applying pressure from inside through the K-cup holes. And making sure it's all secure before you go move on to the other. You could use the chopstick if you wanted to reach in to do that, but I think the hands work well. And so the last thing we need to do is to glue that, not the last thing, but close to the last thing. For the actual holder piece, we just need to glue that tab. So you could add score tape or glue. I'm using the Scotch Quick Dry for this. And then you want to add enough glue. Now this one, you'll need a long utensil to reach in to apply pressure, because it won't be so easy. So I'm going to fold that over, and I'm just kind of, you can gently rub. You could rub the edge, or you could just flip it over like I did once I got it in place, and use something like this chopstick or another blunt tool to go in and apply the pressure needed to secure that tab. So that's what the actual holder looks like. I mean, I guess you could gift it with without finishing it, but we do have a back to it. So we're going to go ahead and add glue to this back part. Just make sure you don't get the glue too far close to the edge. We don't want leaking out. And then we're going to go ahead and flip it over so the pattern's facing the front, and match that panel up so it lines up to the bottom edge, and it lines up to the little angled sides up there too. So you see my fingers going up there to make sure it's centered. And then you can flip it over. And this one, because I was using a handmade paper, it takes a little longer. It's fibrous, so that glue doesn't really stick as well as it does to the textured paper, that American Crafts textured paper I use. So you can go ahead and stick your hand in there, fingers in there, or use the chopstick to apply additional pressure. I had to use my fingers because of the type of paper on that panel. So here's a finished holder. You can add your little embellishments the way you want, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.